My journey, as many of you, has began, from when I remember, in elementary school. I come from a little town, for those of you who are not from Tunisia, about 10 kilometers outside of Sidi Bouzid. I think you've all heard of Sidi Bouzid. It's the place that's responsible for where Tunisia is today. Good or bad, that's another subject. But my little town is called the town of Jilma. Jilma is about 30,000 people spread over about a couple of thousand acres. Our goal, our objective as young kids was that we can finish elementary school. That was success. Finishing elementary school, knowing how to read or write, that was an objective that our parents set for us. I was different. I have no idea. I am not smarter than most kids I went to school with. I'm certainly not the case. Accidentally, as I was telling someone earlier, we call it in Tunisia haraqt. Haraqt meaning illegally going to a country where you're not really wanted. And so, 17 years old, I'm in Boston, Massachusetts. I had never heard of the word tuition before in my life. I had never worked a day formally in my life. At 17 years old, being the oldest of 5, I realized now that I, as far as my family was concerned, became successful, I'm having to send a salary to my family living in Tunisia. A mother who never learned how to read or write, a brother and 3 sisters. I was successful because I was a dishwasher at a restaurant. And that was my job. I had to learn English. And I realized that in the United States, learning English was your sort of key to success. People didn't judge you based on how you looked and the clothes you wore, but they certainly your status was based on how well you spoke. And that was probably the one thing, the smart thing I did in my life, as far as because that launched me to other things. I held many jobs. I was a dishwasher. I was a security guard. I was a taxi driver. I had so many jobs, I can't remember, but every single job led to something bigger and better. All along, I was in school. I was the only person that I knew that learned physically how to sleep in 15-minute spans. I would not take my shoes off for 2 or 3 days because I was on from one job to another or one class to another. My job was very difficult, but I was grateful. I was grateful in that I had that opportunity. At 22, only 4 or 5 years after I had landed in the United States, and I can tell you so many stories about the English mistakes that I was making. At 22, I ran a company, and I had 200 employees. I was the youngest person and the one who spoke English the worst of all 200 employees. That opened my eyes to a lot of things. That opened my eyes to what it was like to be successful, or at least believe that you are successful based on the norms that we grew up with. Because you see, as you see, success in the United States is not success in Tunisia. We're a small country relative to so many other things. We measured success in that era by material things. I found myself somewhere where I was beginning to accumulate these things, yet no one thought I was successful. And it was sort of the first question mark in my head. I found myself being like everyone else. I studied, I went to school, I worked, I consumed, I did everything that this whole world around me did, and I never knew why I was doing what I was doing. I was just following. I began to feel uncomfortable doing what I was doing. The things that I had dreamt of when I was 18, when I landed on that first flight in Boston, all of a sudden made no sense to me. I spoke English, I had a girlfriend, I had a car, and a big American car. I had my own place. I had graduated with a maîtrise in applied mathematics. Things normally would be awesome, yet they weren't. And life took a turn for the worst. I began to question a lot of things. I began to ponder things. I think, as an ex-girlfriend once told me, I got to be too smart for my own good. And she was right. Things got from bad to worse, and Oh, by the way, I got married along the way, and there were little failures in my life. Even after the happiest moment of my life, I had a son. I was 27 years old. I had a son, and then by the time I was 28 or 29, I was out of a job. I was divorced, and things couldn't have gotten worse. This is supposed to be the United States of America. And it took me a couple of years to realize, to actually begin asking the right questions. I just realized one thing. I had been living in this world that I had created, that 99% of other people were living in. And it was a bubble. It was our own world. And in this world, we were the center of attention. Everything evolved around us. We consumed, we pursued pleasures, things, possessions. And for me personally, as someone had told me prior, I was becoming too smart for my own good. None of those things made sense because it was this vicious circle, and there was this animal in it that I was feeding, and this animal was taking over me. And I just look at people walking down the street, and I would feel sorry for themselves. I was with them, yet I didn't know how to get out of the circle. What was once a goal was this big, huge monster living inside of me. I stopped doing everything, and that's why life began to get too uncomfortable for me inside of that bubble. I had to find a way to satisfy that question mark. And what I had to do and what I had to find out is why I was doing what I was doing. I never questioned myself before. I never said to myself, why do I have to wake up in the morning? Why do I have to go to work? Why do I have to buy these clothes? Why is it that car as opposed to this car? Why do I have to live in this neighborhood as opposed to this neighborhood? Why can't my friends be black and white and Indians? Why does my girlfriend not want me to live in this neighborhood? All these questions as a young man began to haunt me. The most important question, and I think the turning point in this journey that today I am proud I have taken, was if I died today, what would my son say? And that was the most important question I'd ever asked. And today, what I thought was a failure, divorce, fatherhood at a young age, turned out to be the most incredible thing, because it answered that one question, why I was doing what I was doing. From that moment on, I was 30 years old when I figured it out. Everything I did till today had a purpose. And that purpose, with that purpose, I developed passion. Now I became passionate about what I did. When I woke up in the morning, it wasn't to go to a job. It wasn't to get a raise. It wasn't to do things for myself. I killed that animal inside of me. That animal was me. I no longer lived in that circle, in that bubble, where I was the center of attention. Now I had a bigger purpose. And it began with being a great father. I'm going to tell you a story. And it's related to each other. My son joined a soccer team. We're living in the States, football, as they say, American soccer. They say soccer, and so my ex-wife decided that I am the best coach for these kids. They were 4 or 5-year-old kids, you know, who were being excuse me, coached by someone in the neighborhood who was a hockey coach, and just for fun. And my ex-wife said, wait a minute, my ex-husband there, he used to play football back in Tunisia, so he'll be a good coach. That was the road of 15 or 16 years of me involved with young kids in the neighborhood. In one of the practices, in one of the years where these kids came in, I met young Johnny. Johnny was a 9 or 10-year-old boy who lived in the neighborhood, was a friend of my son's, went to the same school. Johnny was overweight. Johnny had no coordination. Johnny had nothing that showed that he had any prospects to be a Lionel Messi. And I, of course, in my prior life, before I killed that demon inside of me, would have been more interested in, can we win a game? Now I became more interested, what can I do to help Johnny? And this is in my head every single day. Run, Johnny, run. Was a theme that all of us, parents, on the side, when Johnny would be struggling to run down the field to catch with either an opponent or something, or the ball. Johnny got excited and got to be feeling better about himself. And the season was over and we won games and we lost games, but I had won more than anyone knew. I had won more than I had known, because it was only 12 years later. I'm working in Wall Street in New York, and I'm walking down a busy 8 o'clock in the morning, thousands of people rushing in and out of each other, and about 5 feet away from me, this person, I go like this, and he goes like this, and I go like this, and I'm trying to avoid him, and he stood. A handsome young man, blonde hair, blue eyes, stood in front of me, and I said, can I help you? He goes, run, Johnny, run. And it was Johnny. And it was overweight Johnny, who couldn't get out of his own way. Today, a successful Wall Street attorney, who said to me, Mr. Saibi, what you had done for me, and he didn't know that, it wasn't all me, really. I was just with the parents. He says, the confidence that you gave me has allowed me to attend the best schools in the country and to now have a tremendous job in Wall Street. This story made me think about other things that I can do. I actually made someone else happy other than myself, you know? And it progressed from there. And it went on and on and on. And I dedicated a lot of the effort, a lot of my time to me being successful, because I now measured success not in terms of financial terms. You know, when I was younger, I'd look at my checkbook, what my balance is. I would go online. You know, banking became online. It was a new thing, and I would go every day as if it was going to grow. And I would feel better about myself. But then today, I measure success in how many people I touch. I had found a purpose in my life. And that purpose, as I said, gave me a passion. As you know, as I told you, 2011, revolution came in Tunisia, calling. I was the CEO of a successful company based in Boulder, Colorado. I'm living in Boston. I go there once or twice a month. I visit on them, and it's mostly a lot of, you know, virtual work. We had people in Dubai, we had people in Singapore, and I was living the dream. January 14th, 2011, it means a big day to you guys, many of you. It's the day that our deposed dictator left the country. It was the day I resigned my job as the CEO of my company and decided to come back to Tunisia, because I saw a lot of Johnnies. Because I didn't have the chance for the years prior to, nearly 30 years, to help any of the Johnnies, you see. I come from an area where today, 2015, people live under 4 dinars a day. I come from an area where illiteracy is 75%. 75% of the people don't know how to read or write. I come from an area where many families I know personally, if they had lunch, if they bought food for lunch, they didn't know what dinner was. I come from an area where people have to choose between medicine and feeding their kids. I feel guilty sometimes. I graduated Harvard University, and I have all these diplomas, and I know all these people. Not having this purpose to make people's lives better would make me a criminal in my eyes. I went back to Tunisia in March 2011. And from that moment on, I have had one passion in life, one purpose, is that if I went to bed at night knowing that I have changed someone's life. Let it be a student looking to start a new business. Let it be a young boy going to school, and I've met hundreds of them. Barefoot, a 5-year-old, with no coat, no shoes. It's 2015. What bigger purpose is there? And so, I put it all together. Every one of us has a purpose. Those lucky of us, the lucky ones, will figure it out someday. It took me nearly 30-something odd years to figure it out. Many of us are still pursuing that discovery. And when you do, success will take on a different dimension. And this is something I speak to students. I have traveled Tunisia from Bizerte to Bingerden. I believe I have attended every university there is in Tunisia. I've spoken to thousands of young students, and the message is unique. If I am successful if they, 20 years from now, will do the same thing. Because we come from a part of the world that has suffered for a long time. What does that mean? It means that many of us in that part of the world still live in that bubble I spoke about earlier. They haven't been able to kill that animal inside of us. And of course, when you ask us, the problem is elsewhere. Our problems, when you ask us, are outside of the bubble. It is everybody outside of the bubble. It is never us. And so, my message today to the young men and women, and it's not limited to Tunisia, by the way. What I described is everywhere. It's in Paraguay. It's in Honduras. I have visited these countries, and it's the same thing. The same thing. There are ambassadors. There are young people like you who care. If I leave you with nothing at all today, I want you to remember one thing. Kill the animal inside of you. Because until you do such a thing, you will be living inside that bubble. And your biggest enemy inside that bubble is you. It's you. And so, together, outside of the bubble, we can do wonders. And there are many children out there, many children that need our help. I've decided to make my mission helping those young girls and young boys take the road that I have taken. You can do the same thing. I want to salute you, wish you all the best, and thank you very much.